and ability to keep the government in check, because party could divide along tribal lines. I can show you for avoidance of doubt, mimi a life carrying member, card carrying member wa ODM, and hiyo story ODM si tuachie, deal now leaders nini. Baba is no longer there, so they're gonna find it rough this time round. And another thing, let's focus on our strength. Our strength has been tribal nini, being tribeless and not being affiliated to any party. If we remain like this, it doesn't matter mwenye ameenda hapo. They will, trust me, they will have to work for us. Just see what these people have done. What has happened in the last 3 weeks, irrespective of Ruto being elected by over 7 million people. He has been forced to discredit your moribund cabinet yenye alikuwa nayo. He's not able to do whatever he wants, just because watu wameamua that they're not being divided along tribal lines, they're not being divided along party lines. So I think we should focus more on ourselves, like how to remain united. If we remain united evil, there's nothing else in the government. The government will have to work for us. And then pia umesema something hapo to do with the service delivery. Mi usema Ruto, even he doesn't need to do much. Ruto just need to make sure that the government is accountable na civil service work. Those are things that you don't even need a budget to do. Just make sure that if I apply for ID, I don't need to go back to the office kuenda kuuliza ID imefika wapi. If I apply for driving license today, I just need to make an application. Kama nalipa 200 ama nalipa 3,000, I pay na hiyo license itakuja. If it's a title deed, I don't need to bribe somebody at the house, or I need to if I want to start a business, I don't need to bribe somebody kunipatia license. Just make sure that civil service in work. Those are things that he doesn't even need to change constitution to make sure that zinafanyika. And then incompetence ya government pia Sylvia amesema hapo. And this is something I find is very troublesome with the Kenya Kwanza government. They need to solve shida zetu na the tools they select to solve our problems is very funny. Ikifika time yenye nafaa kutumia things like science and technology to solve our problem, wanaita prayers. Then ikifika hizo zingine, sasa huko ndio sasa wanaleta the nyoru nacheka. But the government is a government. Kuna kitabu ulikuwa nasoma half a day, the government by magic spell. Government yenye problems are being solved by prayers. Problems yenye zinahitaji tangible solutions zinakuwa solved na prayers. Anyway, Nyorude, ongea.
Thank you so much, Risasi Bandia. We will move a motion so that you drop from being a co-host to a speaker. Because a co-host you cannot get drunk in your own alcohol. Anyway, on a light note, shout out to everyone who has made it here. And maybe I have a suspicion that this Arahad was the same Mzee Abdurashid Abdullahi of the COE. I know him from those days. But secondly, what you say that I want to resonate with is the focus should be on the people rather than the duty bearers, because for the longest time, and as someone once said, we do not have a leadership crisis. We've always had a citizenry crisis where the people have condoned and allowed all manner of incompetence to parade and manifest itself amongst the people. Secondly, I hold a view for the longest time that our problem is not the institutions. We have sufficient institutions that can work, but those in authority are the ones who have made them not work. Have we ever stopped and wondered why Kenya Revenue Authority works efficiently while institutions such as the ethics and anti-corruption do not work? It's by design. They have been made not to work. It's by design that it is easy to go to heaven and come back than to get a passport. It is easy to go to heaven and come back than to get basic things like birth certificate. It is easy to go to heaven and come back than to get a driving license. It's because those institutions have been made not to work. So my take would be that we have a design problem, and this is a human design problem. People have designed their way of life to be in such a manner that it instead of breeding out success, it breeds out confusion, controversy, and bureaucracy, so that they can thrive through those processes. So, regardless of who is in authority, as long as we do not have a culture where we have a design that is pro people, and we have a citizenry that is work all the time, and citizens that demand services, better services, we will not achieve much. And so long as the citizenry are enlightened and they are woke and they know what is good for them, what's best for them, even if we have the rogue of the roguest institutions, those institutions will work. But ideally, as it is currently, we are not in want of institutions. So we have sufficient institutions that work, and it's just a design issue that we need to refocus on. The other thing is we need to ask ourselves. Yes, the fact that, and before I say that, this issue of branding this all revolution a Gen Z revolution is also another divide and rule tactic that the government is using, because you hear them come to the podium, they want to address adults as our children. They come to us from a parenting angle without necessarily knowing that all these issues that the Gen Z are advocating for, they have been advocated for time immemorial. These issues are always cross-cutting, and they've always been there. Therefore, to brand this movement or revolution as secretarian, to the extent that they're calling it Gen Z, at how watoto wetu, tutaongea na watoto wetu, tutawasikiza watoto wetu, no. It's not supposed to be that way. It's only that, as history says, and Rashid Abdullah is a historian, he'll tell us that history places certain burdens and obligations on a given generation. It has placed the burden of this final, I would call it, liberation on the hands and the laps of this Generation Z and the Generation Millennial. So they are just like the process owners. But the issue they're canvassing are cross-cutting, and the issue they're canvassing permeates all aspects of society. So therefore, we should resist any attempt to have this conversation being cheapened to a sectarian conversation. Therefore, going forward, there's need to remain tribeless, there's need to remain leaderless, but we organize, as long as we organize, we remain focused, and we remain disciplined in our goings, we will always get over the other end. And finally, the very final one, we need to ask ourselves, even if we were to succeed in getting the head of state out of that office, which I have every reason to believe he will in the fullness of time, what should come first? Shouldn't we apply more than sufficient pressure for the reconstitution of the IEBC, so that as we get to that level, then we have that basic institution that is able and capable of midwifing the necessary processes ahead? Or should we just say, let what may come to fruition at that particular moment? So those would be my preliminary thoughts, and I would give it to the co-host, who is the chief summarizer, to summarize. Thank you.
Yes, vile umesema, one of the things you said here ni story legislation and institutions. I agree with you 100% that we have got so many institutions, and you gave a very clear example ya KRA. KRA is working because it's working for the government. It's one of the most efficient government institutions. Now, if you look at KRA na uangalie immigration, you wonder if they belong to the same government. One is working well, the other one is just there. Hakuna chenye nafanya. So that is never a problem. The problem is making them work na kuku accountable, and this is what this generation is doing. The next thing ni legislation. we have got very good rules, we have got very good policies. In fact, there are some quarter ya people wanasema ati we need to change the constitution. I don't think we should do that. Let's first of all implement what we have na make it work. So Nyorude said that we don't have lack of legislations or even policies. We are a country that is over legislated. Na hiyo ni kizungu kubwa, hiyo ni kizungu ya lawyers. We are over legislated. That is something I knew. And then the second thing in umesema, the third thing in umesema is very, very important, that Gen Zs are just the bearers of the dream, but whatever they are advocating for is something in a resonate na every Kenyan. And I think this is very, very important, especially for Gen Zs and millennials, because the problems they are trying to raise, these are things, they are not specific to the youth only. Those are what is a country should be like that. Like what they're advocating for are things that should be in a country. If we are fighting for good governance, you don't need to focus on the youth. You just need to make the government be accountable. It doesn't matter whether ni youth ama ni old person. If the government is accountable, the youth atakuwa too satisfied. If the jobs are there, the systems are working, the healthcare is working, education is working, and this is something like we should be, as young people, should start thinking. Hii mambo ya government could try to balkanize people in the terms of at when youth, we have got programs for you. That is nonsense. We want government should just have a program that is working for people. You don't need to be specific to youth. There's no single day utasikia Trump akienda kucampaign ama Biden akienda kucampaign anasema vijana tutawaletea kandanda tutawaletea loan ya youth. No, we just need country to work for everyone. Once it works for everyone, the youths watapata tu nini. These people are very creative, they are very bright, they have got ways to nini. So I think that is a very, very important point, and I really wanted to emphasize on it. Anyway, niliambiwa